Hello, Reformed. This is the video for week 6, day 2. And we're continuing our mini-series on worship in the Christian life. Yesterday we saw guilt, grace, and gratitude. Today we're looking at law and gospel. Now these two words, law and gospel, are all over the Bible. And every Christian knows these words. They've heard these words in all kinds of different contexts, from all kinds of different people, in all kinds of different settings. So what do we mean when we talk about this law and gospel? Well, it's helpful to start with definitions. So by law, I mean those things that God tells us to do, His commands for us, His will for our lives. And by gospel, I mean the message about Jesus Christ and what He has done. The message of the gospel is what Christ has done for us in our place and given to us. We see this idea of law and gospel in places like Romans 3, where the Apostle Paul says this: "For by the works of the law no human being will be justified in his sight, since through the law comes the knowledge of sin. But now the righteousness of God has been manifested apart from the law, although the law and the prophets bear witness to it, the righteousness of God through faith in Jesus Christ for all who believe." So when it comes to how we are right with God, how we are justified in His sight, how we are declared righteous by Him, the law and the gospel are opposed to each other. We cannot be right with God by our own law keeping. We are guilty, we are sinners, we are corrupted, as we've seen in several videos in the past weeks. And we can't earn our salvation, we can't keep our salvation. If this problem is going to be rectified, God has to do something, and He has done something in the gospel. Christ has come, lived, died, rose again, and ascended for His people, and that is the good news. And we read about the law in places like Heidelberg Catechism Questions and Answers 3 and 4. How do you come to know your misery? And the answer is, the law of God tells me. And then question 4, what does God's law require of us? And the answer, Christ teaches us this in summary in Matthew 22:37 through 40. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind, and with all your strength. This is the greatest and first commandment, and the second is like it: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments depend all the law and the prophets. So this is a summary of the 10 commandments that Jesus gives. And the Heidelberg also speaks of the gospel, the good news. We read in question and answer 56. In explaining part of the Apostles' Creed, the Catechism says this: what do you believe concerning the forgiveness of sins? And the answer is, I believe that God, because of Christ's satisfaction, will no longer remember any of my sins or my sinful nature, which I need to struggle against all my life. Rather, by His grace, God grants me the righteousness of Christ, that I may never come into judgment. So the law and the gospel are against each other when it comes to sinners being made right with a holy God. But after a sinner is justified, after we are declared righteous in God's sight, after we are converted, after we are Christians, we see that the law is something that we can begin to obey. Not perfectly, not completely, but sincerely. We read in Heidelberg Question and Answer 86, since we have been delivered from our misery, by grace through Christ without any merit of our own, why then should we do good works? And the answer is, because Christ, having redeemed us by His blood, is also renewing us by His Spirit into His image, so that with our whole lives we may show that we are thankful to God for His benefits, and that He may be praised through us. And further, so that we may be assured of our faith by its fruits, and by our godly living our neighbors may be won over to Christ. So this is the law and the gospel. The law cannot save us, not because there's anything wrong with the law. The law is good and holy and perfect and true. Rather, the problem is with us. We are sinners, we are corrupt, we are guilty. And so that is not a way of salvation for us. But through the gospel, we are saved. And then after we are saved, the law has a different relationship to us. Suddenly it's no longer condemning us, but it's showing us what a life of gratitude looks like. So we've seen guilt, which the law tells us, grace brought to us by the gospel message, and then gratitude, which the gospel empowers us to live according to the law. The law shows us what a life of gratitude to God looks like. And so this is an incredibly important thing to remember for the Christian life. And we'll see it again and again over these next few weeks.